goes there? It is I, Arthur, son of Uther Pendragon from the castle of Camelot, king of the Britons, defeater of the Saxons, sovereign of all England.
Didn't know we had a king. I thought we were an autonomous collective.
Hey folks, Dave here. I'm in my studio looking for my next project to make a kick-ass photo. And I'm not really sure exactly what to do, so I headed over to my friendly haunts at Loot Studios. They're hashtag not a sponsor. They have nothing to do with this channel, although they do make some awesome models, and I've used many of their models in my previous projects. So I headed on back to their website just to see what models they may have. So I came across this model of King Arthur, and it really caught my eye. I really liked the posing of him. I liked that the flag was flying. I liked the sword up in the air. It just kind of spoke to me as being highly energetic and well modeled. So I downloaded them, 3D printed them, and started painting them up. So here's the model all completed, and I really like the details on it. I think it was a wise decision. It's still piquing my interest greatly. I spent a lot of time adding some extra gold highlights into his armor here, because he is, after all, the king of, well, what would become England, the king of the Britons. So I put some detail into his photo. I actually figured out how to mask out his flag, which actually turned out pretty good. Weathered him up, not too much, because kings don't usually get into the grime and the muck. They tend to be the ones that come in heroically at the end, at least in my fictionalized model of how kings work. So I kind of made him a little bit grungy. He's obviously been fighting some people, but he's not been, in the muck for weeks on end. He is a king after all. So the next step is to incorporate this into a diorama. He comes with this cool little base here, but it's not enough to actually fill out a whole scene. So I need to fill out the whole scene. So I'm going to ditch the base and then build some sort of landscape here that he is standing on, victorious in his quest. It's going to be fairly simple, probably just a bit of dirt and rocks, and we'll go from there. So let's start building that. Alrighty, so here we got our diorama of King Arthur. I wasn't really sure exactly what I wanted the landscape to look like, so I just kind of threw everything at it and kind of made it fairly simple. One thing I did that I can't believe it's taken me this long to figure out how to do is a mounting system for the figure itself. Typically when I've been making these models, they usually come with some sort of display piece like this one that's not quite sufficient for the photo I want. It looks great for the shelf model, but doesn't look great for the photo model. So I tend to build my own dioramas, and when I do, I just try to build the diorama so the figure will kind of sort of sit upright on its own. But that doesn't always work, and didn't really work in this particular case because the way Arthur's feet were. So what I ended up doing is taking advantage of the fact that in 3D prints, resin 3D prints, you print them hollow and you put in these little holes in the model so that the excess resin will drain out as it prints. But these holes also function as a way to peg this guy to the model. So I used a couple of these Q-tip pegs and I could just slap this guy in there. Takes a little bit of finessing, but you only have to do it once or twice. And the model stands upright, which just saves a ton of time when it comes to the actual photography. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to be using this technique going forward. Speaking of photography, sponsorship break. I have a book written called From a Certain Point of View, A Guide to Miniature Photography. And this is all about everything that I do to create these photos that I do. So if you're interested in how I do the stuff that I do, buy the book. It's in the description below. It's on Amazon. It's on ebook, print. Buy it. It will help the channel out. Thank you very much. So for photography, I'm going to make this very simple. I'm going to just put him in my studio in front of my screen, and I'm going to display some sort of castle in the background. That'll be the background of this. Just light him up properly, take a few photos, assemble them a bit in Photoshop, and that should very much be the image. So it should be fairly simple. So I'm going to take this over to my camera studio and get that going. So let's jump to it. Alrighty, so that is a project complete. I'm kind of pleased with how this image went. It was a bit trickier than I first thought. I had to swap in that background at the last minute there, but that's what Photoshop is for. Use all the tools available to you, and Photoshop is one of those tools. And in this case, it was a tool well worth using because I think it made the image better and stronger. So that's it for me. If you like what you see here, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss my next project, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.